So I would go check out Westcliff on a long weekend kind of thing. We have Columbus Day's coming up in a couple of weeks. So if you've got nothing to do, I would definitely go check it out. But anyway, this week's message is called Trust in the Lord. It's based on Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. It was inspired, instigated by a post on Twitter or X, however you want to call it, whatever you want to call it these days, by Representative Brandy Bradley. She's in the Colorado General Assembly. She represents Douglas County. And I've been watching this for a while now. Her son was in an car accident on September 12th. And it was pretty bad. And he had, just to kind of start, the initial thing was 6 spinal fractures, multiple fractures in his right hand, rib and shoulder blade, multiple fractures there, fractured pelvis, kidney was bleeding, he had lung issues. They had to wire his jaw shut because it was a break, I think, on the left side. And he had no feeling in his right arm, and it went on from there. And they found a couple of more things as they went on, and those details don't really matter, just to know that they were really up against it. And she had asked for prayers on Twitter back then, and has been asking for prayers pretty much every day ever since. And her son's gotten better as it's gone on. And you can go, if you're on Twitter, you can go check it out at Bradley for Colorado, Bradley for CO on X, and you can see the story. You can follow it out, and you can see what's going on there. But there's been a lot of ups and downs. And yesterday, 1st of October, she posted this. She said, "This morning at 4 a.m., something amazing happened to me personally. Yesterday I struggled. I'm tired of the trials, to be quite honest. Tired of being told how strong and brave I am. Before I went to bed, Cole was struggling with keeping his oxygen at around 90, and I was filled with anxiety, fear, and worst-case scenario feelings. And as a parent, I cannot tell you how hard that is. I put my hands on Cole and prayed over him, begging the Lord for stable oxygen, heart rate, blood pressure, and pain management. And then I went to my little cubby with my bed in it and started journaling, because I didn't have the chance at all to do that yesterday. And in that moment, I prayed for the Lord to take all my anxiety and fear, and for me to trust that Cole would be okay. But I didn't believe it. I was ready to be up all night, prepared for the worst night's sleep yet. And as I lay there with tear-strained eyes after sleeping soundly for 6 hours, I learned what he is teaching me, to trust in him 100%, not 90, not 50. This morning, I am overcome with emotions that at the age of 50, I finally trusted with all my heart, gave all my anxiety to him. And that is what this almost tragedy is teaching me, to finally trust. I'm sure the storms that will come the next few days, months, years ahead will test my faith. But this morning, I'm going to rest in the comfort of knowing that I did it. I trusted in him wholeheartedly, even if for one night." Then she quoted Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. Trust in all your ways and acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight." I can't imagine what they're going through as a family. Now, he looked better today. It looked like he got outside today in a wheelchair. And like I said, you go read the story. If you have an X account, go read the story, because it's, as a parent, I can't imagine what she's going through. I remember Caitlin was ice skating. She was pretty young. She was ice skating with a friend down in Pearl Street when they used to have the ice rink down there, and she fell and had a concussion. And it was bad. I mean, not as bad as some, but like, she didn't know where she was. She had no idea what was going on. They had to sedate her to get scans done. I mean, it was just insane. It was really scary. It was really scary. And but I can't imagine. I mean, when you see the pictures of Cole, it's just unbelievable. But it brings again to the forefront that there's a lot going on these days, and not just in the world, but in a lot of people's lives. I mean, mostly what we see is stuff in the world. Mostly what we've talked about lately has kind of been the world and politics and that kind of stuff. Charlie Kirk. But there's a lot going on in people's individual lives, and we tend to marginalize and judge people based on what we see or what we read or what we hear, but not by really knowing or making an effort to find out what the truth of the matter is. But regardless, I mean, Representative Bradley nailed it, right? She nailed it, even if only for a night, because if it was only for a night, at least it's a start. At least she took a step, and God brought her to a point where she really had no choice. And so for her, I applaud her because it's a step. It may not last more than a day. Maybe it is. I don't know. She hasn't addressed it since. But even if it lasted only for a day, it's a step. And it's a step to be remembered. Because we have to have regard for God's providence. And we need to work to rely on Him every minute of every day. In everything, we have to learn to depend upon His providence every day, and it's through faith and prayer. We have to learn to have confidence in His wisdom, right? In the power, the wisdom, the goodness of God. We have to trust in Him with all our hearts. Excuse me. We have to be able to trust and know and rely on and believe that He's able to do what He says He is able to do. That He will bring into our lives things that we may not understand, but His intent is good for us. It's nothing but good intentions. And it's not always what we want, but it's always what we need, as difficult as those times may be. He does intend the best for us, and He does these things in His wisdom, in His goodness, and according to all His promises. All the things that He's promised us, everything comes into this and factors into this. We have to be able to submit to Him and lean not on our own understanding, because our own understanding fails us all the time. How many times do you think you have a situation sussed out and it turns out to be something totally different? I talk about that all the time with arguments. I play out arguments in my head, and it never goes the way I think it's going to go, ever. So we have to rely on Him and not on our own understanding. We have to acknowledge Him in prayer and with thanks for all He brings. And in difficult times like this, I imagine thanking God for what He's brought into Representative Bradley's life. Kind of hard to be thankful in those moments, but there's always a purpose behind it. We have to ask Him to guide us. We have to ask Him for His permission, for His advice, for His direction in all things, every day. And not just when times are difficult. We have to search Him out and search out His advice and guidance, even in the most mundane things of everyday life. Then when we do that, the next step is to be patient, right? We have to be patient and wait on Him and understand that we may not get the answer we're looking for, the guidance we're looking for, in the time that we think it should come. We have to be patient then and wait for that direction. And then when that direction comes, that advice comes, right, that guidance comes, we have to say, yes, Lord, and submit to that. Submit to the what, where, when, how He guides. Because God doesn't ask for just some. He demands all. He demands trust with all our hearts. He demands obedience in everything that we do. And He demands total commitment to Him. Romans 12:1-2 says, I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. Right? The word for trust in verse 5 of the psalm of the proverb today is batak, which means to throw down upon one's face, to lie extended on the ground, to be at total submission to the person who's in front of you. Right? It's a picture of being at one's mercy, to be done with as they so please. Right? And the biggest danger we face is leaning on our own understanding, on our own experience. Because when we do that, sometimes we miss God's will. And that doesn't mean we turn off our brains, right? That doesn't mean that we just cast, caution to the wind and not use our common sense. But we have to be cautious in relying on our experience or the experience of others. Because experience in the world does not necessarily equate to experience in spiritual things. So we do so with caution. And because we've seen what it's done relying on our own experience or the experience of the world. We've seen what that's done to people in the Bible when they get out ahead of God and try to do things on their own. Right? Abraham and Sarah with giving her maidservant to Abraham rather than wait on God. We see it with Joshua with Ai. Right? They go up without God going with them and they get their butts whooped. Right? That's what happens when we go and get out in front of God and rely on what we've experienced in our lives rather than just going, okay, God, what's the next step here? Right? It's always chaos when we do that. Being wise in our own eyes usually means trouble in our world. Matthew Henry says, those that put themselves under a divine guidance shall always have the benefit of it. God will give them that wisdom which is profitable to direct, so that they shall not turn aside into the bypaths of sin, and then will himself so wisely order the event that it shall be to their mind, or, which is equivalent, for their good. Those that faithfully follow the pillar of God, those that faithfully follow the pillar of cloud and fire shall find that though it may lead them about, it leads them the right way and will bring them to Canaan at last. I often find myself, after reading through some great Christian authors, some of the best theologians on the planet, the Oswald Chambers types, or even the Bible at times, and the words of Jesus, I find myself sometimes going, I don't know how to do that. How do I do that? How do I submit in times like this? Sometimes you just have to learn by doing, by taking that step. We find ourselves in a situation where we have no way out. We're boxed in. We have no solution to the problem. We have to say to ourselves, all right, what does the Bible say? What does the great book of advice tell me to do in this situation? And then do it. Maybe we'll have a day like Representative Bradley, and maybe that will lead to more days and more learning of how to submit and how to follow those tenets of the Bible. Right? We ask God in those moments and he shows us and we do it. Maybe it leads to more and more and more trusting, more knowing, more reliance. I remember I was on, I used to hate flying. I used to have to take meds to fly. And it wasn't a lot. It was just enough to take the edge off. I would still get nervous, but it wouldn't drive me into a panic. And Caitlin, my daughter Caitlin and I were flying back. I want to say it was from North Carolina, soccer camp, North Carolina. We're coming back here to Denver, and as those who've flown in and out of Denver, it can be a little bumpy. Well, this was in the summer, and it was thunderstorm time. And so we were coming back in the midst of thunderstorms. And if you've ever flown in the midst of thunderstorms, you see how you can get around them because they build up this way. And so you can fly around them and stuff. And it was fascinating to watch. Lightning going off and all that, but, it's all over there. And I remember looking down, right? Because, the fear is not of flying, the fear is of crashing, right? And I remember looking down out of the window on the left side of the plane. We were sitting in the back. I had this moment of complete calm, of this realization that I was not in control of anything that was going on at the moment. And I had this probably 30 seconds of complete calm until we hit the next bit of turbulence, or whatever. But that has stuck with me, that I am not in control of anything, right? And I, work to build on that. So we have those moments. God will show us these things in these moments, and he will give us things that we can build on, that go with what the Bible says, and teach us how to obey those things the Bible gives us and how to behave in these moments. Doesn't mean that we can do them consistently all the time. We got to take that step. We have to give into that when God brings it into our lives, right? That first step of faith. Because a lot of times it's on-the-job training, man. We get thrown into the deep end, and God says, okay, what are you going to do now? You going to try to do this yourself? Or are you going to rely on me? What are you going to do? And a lot of times in the deep end, we learn to rely on God pretty quickly. But if we start in the quiet times, right? It's pretty quiet out here today. I'm surprised. Usually you hear the buzz of traffic and stuff, and it's pretty quiet out here today. Nobody on the tennis court. Our dog Bo keeps coming over here and he's nudging me over here on the side because he wants attention. But it's pretty quiet today. And in these quiet times, if we learn to go to God with everything and say, okay, God, what's your plan for today? What do you got for me today? Right before the day even starts. Say, okay, God, guide me in every step. Show me things that I need to see and guide me in the things I need to do. We'd start in the quiet times, and maybe these tumultuous times wouldn't be so tumultuous. They wouldn't be as hard. I mean, how else do we think Jesus was able to go to the cross? To offer forgiveness to those who killed him? How do we think he was able to do that? Right? Faith and knowledge of God. That's how. Complete trust in him. Right? If we're going to be his disciples, then we need to be his disciples. Have a great week. Pray for Representative Bradley if you think about it this week, her son Cole. Continue to pray for the feeding station, for whatever God has for us going forward. And take a moment when you wake up in the morning, thank God for the day. Thank God for his provision, his protection. And then ask God, all right, God, what do you got for me today? You might be surprised.